other dignitaries present over here today. On behalf of Center for Digital Economy Policy Research, I welcome you all to this roundtable conference on Broadband for All, being organized in collaboration with IIT Delhi and Broadband India Forum. Center for Digital Economy Policy Research was established in June 2012. It is popularly known as C-DEP. It's a New Delhi-based independent think tank with a focus on promoting aspects of the Indian digital economy and to facilitate the creation of a larger manufacturing and services ecosystem. C-DEP brings together the finest brains in academia and industry to formulate draft policies on digital economy. C-DEP operates in areas of policy research, advocacy, consultancy, facilitating stakeholder consultations, connecting thought leaders nationally and globally, collaborating with government entities, and working for strengthening the startup ecosystem. During the past several years, C-DEP collaborated with government departments and ministries by providing quality policy inputs. C-DEP played a significant role in shaping India's IT policy and startup ecosystem. C-DEP conducted numerous events on contemporary digital initiatives of government. Very recently, C-DEP released its report on estimating the economic impact of national open digital ecosystem. Digital inclusiveness is a key component of our Prime Minister's clarion call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. BharatNet is an ambitious initiative of the government for providing broadband for all. Today's roundtable focuses on this mammoth digital initiative of the government. The roundtable will be moderated by Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, the founder of C-DEP, and we have with us distinguished panelists to share the insights and thoughts. Amongst us, we have Mr. Rajesh Gupta, who is the Joint Administrator, Universal Service Obligation Fund, Mr. Neeraj Kumar, Deputy Director General and Mission Director of BharatNet Initiative, Mr. Rajat Mukarji, Director General, Broadband India Forum, and Professor P. Vigneswara, Professor with IIT Delhi. I welcome all the panelists, and I also welcome the audience gathered here. Now, I invite Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya to take the floor and commence this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I really appreciate you taking your time off from a very, very busy schedule that all of you have. And I don't think we could have had a better panel than this on the topic that we're talking about. This is a topic which essentially concerns almost every single person in this country who needs to be connected. And as we all know, there is a long way for us to go, even though we have come a long way from where we started 20 years back. So it's been a stellar journey, and let me introduce the panel that we have today. We have on my right Mr. Rajesh Gupta, who is the Joint Administrator, Universal Service Obligation Fund, Department of Telecommunication. He's an engineer from the MBM Engineering College at Jodhpur and had done executive program from IIM Calcutta and postgraduate diploma from MDI Gurgaon. He has worked with BBNL and was a director and DDG in Department of Telecom before taking over as Joint Director of USOF. Welcome, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you, sir.
On my left, we have got Mr. Neeraj Kumar, who is a member of the Indian Telecommunications Service and had long stints of engagement at the corporate office of Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited and Department of Telecommunications, headquarters holding senior positions. Mr. Kumar has spearheaded many new services and products launches for market-leading telcos, which have been a game changer in the telecom industry, including the first to launch large nationwide MPLS IP network for BSNL, mass-scale broadband rollout in BSNL, and intelligent network services in BSNL. Welcome to the session, Mr. Kumar. Professor P. Vigneswara Ilavarasan is a professor of information systems at the Department of Management Studies, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He has been a visiting research fellow at United Nations University, School of Computing and Society, Macau, and School of Management, Curtin University, Perth. He is a recipient of the Outstanding Young Faculty Fellowship Award at IIT Delhi and Professor M. N. Srinivasan Memorial Prize of the Indian Sociological Society. He is also a senior research fellow at Learn Asia, a leading regional ICT policy and regulation think tank. He had taught at Pondicherry Central University and at IIM Rohtak, Indore, and Amritsar. Welcome, Professor Vigneswara. Last, we come to Mr. Rajat Mukarji, who is the Director General of Broadband India Forum, an alumnus of St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Rajat has more than 45 years of work experience with specialization in strategy, branding, communication, business development, and advocacy. Prior to this, Rajat has served in key positions in a number of organizations, including Raymond's, Bella, AT&T, being an original team member of the establishment ZTE India, and most prominently as the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer of Idea Cellular for 16 years. Welcome to the forum, Mr. Mukarji. So we'll start the session with the professor, Professor Vigneswara. Professor Vigneswara, can you explain to us how is the third phase of BharatNet 2, which is the primary vehicle for providing broadband to all in this country? How is the third phase different from the previous phases that have been rolled out very successfully by the government?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me here, Jaijit. A little bit of introduction about where I'm coming from, so that will help me to contextualize my responses. I'm basically a demand-side researcher looking at how people use information technology. So when I look at phase 1 and phase 2, when we started with phase 1, internet penetration is not really picking up. So we were kind of having grand dreams about how this broadband can bring in a lot more benefit, especially societal and economic benefits. Now we are looking at a third phase. In terms of what we could have achieved, we have not really achieved it. Okay, there are a lot of challenges with given the kind of scale of the project what we are really looking at. Since we are not really achieving it, we are not able to amplify the potential of the technology that can be brought through this particular optical fiber. So given this, we are in a very, very crucial moment, and it is very important that we should go ahead and implement it so that this potential of the technology can be kind of amplified amongst people, especially looking at some kind of developmental outcomes. So in a way, I would say this is very, very important from the demand side. It is very important to look at what really went wrong in phase 1 and phase 2 and try to see whether we can do something in the phase 3 rounds. Right? I would say that we have a lot more lessons we have learned in phase 2, phase 1 and phase 2, and I'm also looking forward to this phase 3. This is what I would say.
Thank you. That sets the base for the conversation. Mr. Mukarji, coming to you, and you have been in touch with the industry and kind of represent the industry for broadband in that sense. We have seen India doing a stellar job with highways, laying out highways at a speed which no other nation in the world has ever done, including China. What are the learnings that we can borrow from our highway development for BharatNet? And we do keep in mind that the road network initially had hiccups. It had severe issues when we were all learning how to actually roll it out in a smooth manner. So what are the learnings that we can borrow from the road network rollout that is applicable for the broadband rollout in India?
Thank you, Jaijit. It's an interesting parallel that we're taking with the highways environment because they are both connectivity links. And the basic premise that was started, I think, was a PPP kind of environment, which is where telecoms originated way back in 1994-95. But obviously, and I think this goes to Professor Vigneswara's point as well, the environment when we started phase 1 was very different to the environment that we are currently faced with. Plus, technology has moved in leaps and bounds. So obviously there is a difference and a changed kind of model that we have to look at. But before I get into what the model could be or should be or ought to be or maybe, I think it's important for us to try and understand what the task at hand is first. I think in phase 1 we were looking at 640,000 villages and gram panchayats to cover. We covered some number. We didn't cover them all. And I think in phase 2 the target changed, and then in phase 3 the target has changed again. Making it just that little bit more challenging, and as you correctly point out, the experiences of phase 1 and phase 2 and the learnings from that resulting in what not to do in phase 3. But maybe the PPP model needs to be overtaken by something which could resemble, say, a HAM, for example. Now, when I use the word HAM, it's a hybrid annuity model. So what you do is, it's a combination of of an EPC and a build, operate, and transfer model, where you involve the external partners in achieving a target, managing it for a period, and handing it over. Now, the earlier principle was an outright subsidy model, whereas this new one does not need to have to be an outright subsidy model, but can operate on a slightly different format. And that's the parallel that I think you've correctly drawn with the highways.
Right. Very interesting. So I'll have an add-on question to that. If we go down a BOT kind of a model or a HAM or a modified model, should there be any limit on how much the bidders ask for in terms of VGF, or that should be just left to the market? There should be no limit.
There is always the market forces which are required to be retained, but it is possibly more like a 60-40, where that's 60%, and I'm just putting a rough number, could be 65-35 also, but where 60 or 65% is generated by the government, and the debt of the private player therefore gets reduced.
Right.
The objective finally at the end of the day is to try and reduce that burden.
Right. Thank you. Thanks. Coming to you, Mr. Neeraj Kumar, the ROW turned out to be another key issue in rolling out broadband. That's what many of the corporates say. ITI had that problem in Maharashtra. So an ROW for broadband, it comes with challenges came essentially from entities that were under the central government, such as forestry, which is the issue in Maharashtra, gas pipelines, railways, national highways. Is there anything that can be done to strengthen these entities to provide better support? And in fact, parallel to that is the question, how can we leverage Gati Shakti, because that was one of the purposes of Gati Shakti, so that all these linear assets are aligned and ROW becomes less of an issue as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jaijit. So I joined in this as mission director. In fact, my designation is mission director, broadband mission, not the mission director or BharatNet. So when I got appointed in December 15, the pendency of ROW application was 71,000. And I think everybody knows what ROW application means, because if you have to lay the optical fiber cable or you have to put the telecom tower, land may belong to the, and you are saying only the central government, but in most of the cases it belongs to the state government, municipalities, and so many boards are there, rural, urban. Okay. So now what is happening that maybe at lower level, whether there is a corruption or whether you can say coordination is not there, nobody bothers about it. And the system was not online. So somebody has deposited an application somewhere in the rural department, nobody knows about it. Okay. So 71,000 applications were pending. And come 5G launch, every 200 meters you have to put the antenna. So you can imagine what will be the amount of pendency. So as per the information technology rules of 2016 which the government had framed, they had said that there are three things basically. First is the ROW policy alignment. That means how much charge should be there for the underground or overground or for the tower across the country, because there was no rule. So and every state government was seeing it, or even the central department, to make revenue out of it. So right, if you say the broadband is after air, water and
Food.
Fourth thing is the broadband.
Absolutely.
But if you lay the water pipe, nobody charges you for laying this pipe. But if you lay the optical fiber cable, everybody wants to make money. And as per the terms and conditions of the operators, they are not supposed to cover the 100%. I think they are okay if it is covering 85% or 90%. I don't know what are the licensing conditions. So he doesn't go. And what he will do to save this cost, he will put the microwave antenna. So your mobile tower through which you are getting mobile broadband is connected through the microwave. Now you know that microwave doesn't provide that much bandwidth which an optical fiber can provide. So you will get little speed there. So if you are not getting good speed because the municipality has not given you the permission, or they are charging very high, Right, so this is one problem. Second thing is, even if they are ready to pay, coordination is not there, physical applications are. So another provision in the central ROW policy was that every state should have an online portal. If you are not having an online portal, we will make an online portal. And Department of Telecom has made an online portal. Since we joined, we are going to launch on 6th. Today only Honorable Minister has given time, and they have said that we will launch it on 6th. So most of the states are now covered, integrated. So we have 36 states. For 10 we have designed. For another 26 we have integrated. Integration has been done in two ways. Center to state integration, state to center integration. State to center means whatever pendency or visibility is there of the applications, it will come to the central portal. If somebody is submitting the application on the central portal, it will go to the state and they will be able to take action. So now with this visibility, now we are able to talk to the chief secretary, all the secretaries, we have made a WhatsApp group, secretaries following up, even we have got a letter from the Honorable Minister to the 10 Chief Minister where the pendency was high, and even our additional secretary sahab, and I was supposed to travel to meet Chief Secretary on 6th, but now our additional secretary will be going along with some other officer to meet Chief Secretary to bring focus that you are having 20,000 applications, what actions you are taking. So we are bringing focus on it so that this pendency is removed. So once this pendency is removed, now the operators will be enthused to put more towers, right? So, and whatever applications are there, towers will get connected to the fiber. So we will see that more unfiberized towers are fiberized. That will result into the much more better broadband.
Right.
So central ROW portal, policy alignment, and following the pendency. These are three things we are tackling to basically speed up the product.
I think that sounds very good. And I think, I suppose Gati Shakti will also help.
Yeah, Gati Shakti is another thing. Now, basically, I am also part of from DOT on the PM Gati Shakti. It basically meets very frequently, and the main purpose of this is that they are able to bring other ministries also. So for example, if NHAI making a presentation, okay, they are laying an expressway from Delhi to Mumbai or maybe Jamnagar to Amritsar. So I can say, okay, are you having the common duct? Are you providing provision for the optical fiber cable? So if they have not thought so, they will do so now. So even if they are laying the duct, so now I will ask them, okay, are you making provision to basically give power connection or bringing this optical fiber out and put it on the pole, because on 5G, suppose tomorrow autonomous vehicles come, so you will have to take out this fiber and put a 5G antenna. So are you doing that? So what is happening now? Every ministry is mapping its assets on the Prime Minister PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, which is being developed by the BISAC, the Bhattacharya Institute of Space Application and Geospatial. So they have done it. They have mapped all even DOT's fiber, which is belonging to the government PSUs, about 13 lakh kilometer. Out of 13 lakh kilometer, 9 lakh road kilometer has been mapped on the portal. Another, I think, 3-4 lakh kilometer will be mapped by, I think, June end. And we have also asked all the private operators to map all their assets. So what is happening? We have asked the BISAC to develop a feature. For example, a railway is having some fiber and they want to sell it out. So an alert will be generated to the DOT and DOT stakeholders. Okay, this fiber is sellable. And now we are going to give training to use this portal to all the operators also through our LSAs, that you can see what are the fiber available, spare fiber available from the government PSUs, from BBNL, BSNL, Power Grid or anybody. If it is sellable, you can see the contact number of the person to whom to contact for. So on the one hand, it will help BBNL, BSNL to sell their fiber. On the other hand, it will help the telecom companies to take this fiber, and we have also developed another feature in this portal, because all the towers are also mapped with the GIS coordinate. So all the towers are there. We know which towers are fiberized, which towers are not fiberized, and we also have mapped the optical fiber cable. So they have developed a tool. So how many towers which are unfiberized are there, and which is the nearest optical fiber head from this tower to fiberize it. Right. So in one go it will say, okay, Goa, you have 3,500 towers. For each tower, it will show, this is the map, it will show how much is the total fiber. Now, if BBNL has to lay the additional fiber or somebody wants to lay additional 200, 300, fine. Otherwise, you know exactly what is the situation. There is no excuse to the telecom operators from tomorrow onwards that you can say, I will not connect my tower to the optical fiber cable. So we are organizing, we have written to the National Telecom Training Center. They will provide training to all the operators, all the LSA heads, all these BBNL, BSNL, to show that how the fiber is to be used.
I think that sounds very, very heartening to use technology to make sure that there is transparency and coordination.
Yes.
I think that's going to take away a lot of the ROW issues that were either perceived or real that was happening on the ground.
And in fact, one more point I would like to add, it's not only for doing the fiberization, in fact, all the institutions, for example, the schools, the police stations, all the tourist hotspots, they are also mapped on the fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to know how many tourist hotspots, what is the nearest fiber connectivity, it is also visible.
Okay.
For example, government said PM Gati Shakti, they want to know in 200 economic zone locations, what is the fiber connectivity. So yesterday we had to write mails and letters to all the telecom operators, what is the situation, are you having the fiber?
Mm-hmm.
But if the economic zones are also mapped, optical fiber is also mapped, then anybody and everybody can see. A person sitting in the industry wanting to make an investment into the country, he can know if I have to take my fiber, where is the nearest fiber. Mm-hmm. In fact, the BharatNet project, the Kavaratti optical fiber cable, the cable or Andaman cable, now we are showing this fiber mapped onto the PM Gati Shakti mission to other ministries. If tourism department wants to see, okay, this project will get completed in 23 and these are the landing stations of the optical fiber cable, where I do put my 5-star hotel.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So this is, yes.
In addition, what Neeraj has said, this is all about the status. In fact, the projects which are getting rolled out, that also wherever difficulties are there is provision of across the ministry's cooperation also. So any difficulties through PM Gati. So any difficulties being faced, say like about right of way or any other issues with any other ministries or state, the agencies can put up their issues so that there is coordination among these ministries and with the states, with the help of DPIIT or with the help of PMO, and the projects are expedited.
And this sounds like music because it's not just Gati Shakti, it's beyond the Gati Shakti ministry. It's for everybody.
Yeah. And two more things, that after this step one, in step one, we are connecting all the 36 states ROW portals to the central portal. Phase 2, all the portal of these ministries, for example, the forest ministries, railway ministries, everybody is having its own defense ROW portal. We will integrate with them also. So all the pendency will come to at central level and we will be able to monitor. And third thing is about the ROW policy alignment for these railways, Ministry of Finance, our minister said, because they are also separate departments. So if I say my policy says 1,000 rupees, they say my policy says 2,000 rupees. So it doesn't work out. So he has mandated, let's make a cabinet note. So we are preparing a cabinet note which will superride all these individual policies. Excellent. Wherein as one document we will say, okay, these are the laying charges for everybody. And once it is approved by cabinet, it will settle all these differences.
That's brilliant because it will also help in figuring out the budgets for rolling out these networks a priori rather than figuring it out later on. I think these are absolute music to the ears for, I'm sure, both the industry and the academia who have been breaking their head on it. Yes. That brings me to this question, Mr. Gupta, that one of the key issues that seems to be bothering the private sector is to avoid the repeat of what happened with highways. Now, obviously, two infrastructure are not similar, but there are certain similarities and certain dissimilarities. So there was PPP that was adopted in highways, which led to what people claim was failed projects, and banks had NPAs, corporates had balance spreadsheets. So what could be a model that we can adopt for BharatNet 3, which we can borrow from NHAI? Where there was one example that Mr. Mukarji gave of HAM. What else? What are the learnings that we can get from NHAI?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya and all the panel members. Basically, first I would like to start my discussion with reference to the remarks given by Professor Vigneswara, Rajat Mukarji and Neeraj about BharatNet phase 1, phase 2 and now phase 3. So I would like to just emphasize that the BharatNet phase 1 was conceived in around say year 2012, but actual work was started in year 2014, and the target was to connect about say 1 lakh gram panchayats. That work was then taken up, and by December 2017, this 1 lakh gram panchayats got connected. In between, the total target was extended by 25,000, that is to connect about say 1,25,000 gram panchayats. So that work in phase 1 was completed. In phase 2, the target was to connect the remaining gram panchayat on optical fiber, that is all around say 2.5 lakh gram panchayats. So that work, the modified implementation strategy was conceived and in year around say 2017, and many states were also, about 8 states also were included in the implementation of BharatNet phase 2. A private sector-led model also was thought of in Punjab and Bihar. That work was directly done by BVNL, and BSNL also was given execution in 4 states, and that's how this phase 2 work of remaining gram panchayat was thought of. And as on date, by laying around say 3.1 lakh kilometers of optical fiber cable, the work in about say 1.2 lakh gram panchayats in BharatNet phase 1 has been completed, and by laying around say 2.7 lakh kilometers of optical fiber cable, work in around say 60,000 gram panchayats of phase 2 has been completed. In total, around say 1.8 lakh gram panchayats work has been completed as on date. Talking about say BharatNet phase 3 is basically the vision of Honorable Prime Minister, and to connect not only the gram panchayat but all the inhabited villages in the country. So that is the BharatNet phase 3. That is, the scope is now extended from 2.5 lakh gram panchayats to around say 6.4 lakh inhabited villages. And what I said, around say 3.8 lakh kilometer optical fiber cable has been laid in the country under BharatNet project so far for connecting around say 1.8 lakh gram panchayats. Now the work quantum is to lay around 18 lakh kilometers of optical fiber cable for these all villages, inhabited villages connectivity. So it was thought of that to bring the private sector efficiency into the operations, that is the PPP model. And we came out with an RFP in the month of July last year, but there was no participation. We opened the bids in the month of January end, and there was no participation. And subsequently, the number of industry interactions are also held, and we are continuously now into restructuring this PPP model, as you correctly said, learning from NHAI or road sector, learning various other models possible to how to make now to bring the private sector efficiency also into the operation, and how to make this. And this is again to emphasize that PPP experiment in telecom sector is a niche this thing, and it's not has been earlier dealt in any other fashion. So, of course, now different model and different way of working with the numbers, how to make it really successful this time. The HAM model, what you said, hybrid annuity model, Rajat Mukarji ji also told about this hybrid annuity model. I may not be able to divulge all the details about this restructuring of this PPP model is still under formulation. We are going into the cabinet very soon. But now we want to isolate the revenue risk of the industry from this particular middle mile network. We have broken into 2 parts, middle mile PPP and last mile PPP. In middle mile PPP, we have isolated, we have removed the revenue risk, or we intend to remove the revenue risk from the industry and make them participate in this particular middle mile network first, to maintain to this network on SLA base, high SLA base, as well as to complete the remaining BharatNet, that is taking the optical fiber cable beyond the gram panchayat to all inhabited around say 6.4 lakh villages in the country. So that will be the scope of the middle mile PPP, and of course we are thinking into the concept of HAM, this time, and we are trying to bring up calculate the project cost in a particular fashion, and to keep this the industries still also in the operations of BharatNet. Definitely there will be some percentage fixed from, say, Government of India would be around, say, 65, 70, 75. These numbers are being worked out, and there will be, of course, interactions with Niti Aayog, PPPAC involved, and finally this model would be evolved. But yeah, of course, would like to keep this particular hem-like structures, wherein the remaining part, whatever the industry would actually put into this BharatNet, that would be given back in terms of annuities. In say, if you want to go for 20 years of this complete leasing out of the network or operations, we want to make it over to private player, then this remaining part of whatever capex or operations also we are trying to build up, so would be given in parts of annuities back to the district.
So I have a connected question that's coming in my mind, is that how are we going to fund such a large network, given that what you mentioned, the humongous scope that you mentioned, would probably require much more than what probably USOF has as funding. So what is the thought process in that direction?
Yes, this is correct. We are working into those all numbers that time, because we are taking all this all remaining villages of the country to be connected in this single cabinet note, but the outgo will not be in 1 year, sir. Whatever USOF PT we have around 7 lakh crore, and whatever remaining we have, but the outgo will not be in 1 year. That the construction period would be, at least we want to complete it by year 2025 now. So there will be around, say, 2 to 3 years of the construction period, of course, and then whatever remaining at all, if there would be taking, maybe going for some loan from government of India.
If I may ask.
Yes, please.
So, Rajeshji, in this entire period, who maintains the network?
Means in the coming days or whatever time?
No, I mean, once you have
PPP.
built it, and whether it's a PPP model or a ham model, or whichever the model may be, it's a partnership of the government,
of course,
and the private sector.
Of course.
So the question really here is, there is a systems integrator there'll be one possibly for one component or one area. Who has got the responsibility to maintain that network for a period of time? Because this is one of the
20 years period. Yeah.
Construction
of the network as well as the operation and maintenance would be the responsibility of the concessionaires.
Of the concession.
Yes, of course. But we this time want to take utilization, that is the revenue risk, out from this concessionaire. There will be separate last mile, some micro entrepreneurship type of model for the utilization of the network. There will be, so the middle mile PPP would be separate, and last that's what we intend to accomplish.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
The phase 1, phase 2, the last mile connectivity was given to private service providers. They are expected to do some business from Gram Panchayats to the households and everything. So it's heartening to see that VBNL is looking at that very seriously. Is it possible to share some more information on what is the kind of partnership you are looking at the last mile connectivity? Right, one is the infrastructure building, line hopping. The next one is coming up with different sets of services for the last mile connectivity. Right, so I predominantly see or read about BBNL from outside, so I'm an academic. This is predominantly an infrastructure building, right? So you need to focus more on building RFPs, bringing people to put this optical fiber. The second one is generating income out of the services provided.
Correct.
So what are the plans? I mean, any tentative plans?
This includes PM1 also.
Thank you, Professor. Basically, in USOF, we do not think much from the revenue perspective, number one. The thing is that we must make the services available in the rural and remote areas of the country. That's our number one objective. So revenue maximization. But of course, we are very serious this time of the time of the network, number one, and the utilization of the network also. So within this proposal this time, what restructured PPP model we are taking to cabinet, we intend to have certain model for utilization as well. That is also being finalized. So I'll not be able to fully discuss on this particular platform, but yeah, we want to keep a model here in which we are trying to work some sort of VGF type of mechanism so that the services or the utilization which is not very feasible or very profitable to the entrepreneurs also, it can become feasible to them to provide the connections at reasonable rates. Adoption in the rural areas can increase. So we are working on that part as well, and we want to make it part of this very same this proposal this time to the cabinet, including the construction, operations, and as well as the last part.
So it is not revenue optimization, it's utilization optimization.
We want to really see that utilization, adoption increases. We want to come certain scheme also this time for increasing the last mile utilization. So
I think that brings me to you, Professor Vigneswara. Given what Mr. Gupta mentioned in terms of the humongous size of the project and things that have not been done earlier in a resource challenged environment that India has, execution will be one of the key success factors of BharatNet. And robust and technologically advanced infrastructure, building better utilization will be helpful to achieve the economic and financial return of the project. But considering that DOT, BSNL for that matter, very few entities in the world, does not really have the experience in implementing what Mr. Gupta mentioned, which has not been done earlier ever. So what should be the government do to ensure a robust project management framework from an academic perspective? What are the best practices that one can adopt?
Thank you very much, Mr. There's a little bit of disagreement here in the sense large scale projects, the government bodies are able to do it. We are able to do it in multiple countries as well. But then given limitations in our bureaucracy, we are doing okay. Right. In terms of what are the possibilities, I think even within our phase 1, phase 2, there are some positive lessons from the existing ones. Some of the states are able to do well. In fact, I heard about in Jharkhand, they are able to implement the line optical fiber. They are doing relatively better compared to some of the states.
Jharkhand, Gujarat also.
So one is looking at possible lessons from places where we are doing good. That is within our BharatNet context. The second one is looking at whether other domains are able to provide us insights. Say looking at National Highway Authority in terms of building roads and everything, what they are really doing. So HAM model we were discussing here. So is it possible for us to replicate it? Customize it a little bit to the conditions what we have it in BharatNet. At the same time, whether is it possible for us to implement it or not? We'll look at this. The second one, I can look at it in terms of when we say private sector, the last two phases, we did not really think that the private sector can do much. The third phase, we are looking a little bit more seriously. Let us look at the triple model. We are looking at them seriously. It is also nice to understand from private sector's perspective so why they are not really jumping into this. The last mile connectivity, they are not really coming forward. There are reasons being given by them. We need to understand why they are not really doing it. They don't want to take a risk, maybe because the existing infrastructure is not very good according to them. Second one is they are not able to really understand about the demand that is available in the last mile. Okay, they are not able to burn their heads. Why do you want to invest so much of money? So if we, as a government, if we feel that there is a feasibility gap, and is it possible for us to really contribute a little bit? I think Rajesh has kind of indicated that they're looking at this a little bit more seriously. So that is one part. The third one is, this is, I'm thinking aloud, maybe I'm completely stupid here. There are telecom service providers are doing extremely well in certain regions. Is it possible for them to make them as a stakeholder to the implementation of the project? Saying that, okay, you take responsibility for it. We will look at some models by which you don't pay the USOF, out of the gross revenue. We will adjust a little bit, but you take the risk. In the sense, you take the risk, the same bot model will do it, but then the money comes from the USOF later. Right? So that also can be done. So these are the few things I can think of right away.
Right. No, I think very interesting. So, as you rightly said, NHAI is a classic example of large project being done. But I think in telecom, it requires a different set of skills, perhaps, which we all collectively need to develop. Do you think there's a role for, let's say, the private sector consultants to add to the bandwidth of the government organizations, because by definition government organizations will have limited bandwidth. In fact, any organization will have limited bandwidth. So do you think
Yes.
private sectors or semi-governmental organizations can come in and play a
I
role?
can think of an analogy from a regular conventional industry. We call that as a bimodal information systems management. Right, if you have a larger organization, say like for IIT, you have a unit that takes care of the IT infrastructure at the back end. Now you want to do a lot more things in terms of digital transformation. Right, now one is taking care of the back end infrastructure, another one is thinking about new business models using the data that is emerging from this infrastructure. Now my existing organization is not having the capacity to think in terms of digital transformation. What do I do is, I will not touch the existing one, I will take the help from them in running this infrastructure, I will create a parallel unit, okay, and these two units will talk to each other, but the second unit is going to talk in terms of more in terms of strategy or innovation, looking at how do we really handle this data that is emerging from this, what are the new business models can emerge. If we are looking at those kind of implementation lines for BharatNet, I don't say consultant as a big umbrella term. I say that we need to think of some alternative structure by which we don't repeat the mistakes that have happened in the phase 1 and phase 2, and we should be able to do this. If bringing consultants, or you pick up private sector exposed bureaucrats sitting in other places, bring them into BBNL, saying that, okay, you don't worry about the infrastructure related stuff, you worry about the later other part of it, we will help you whatever we can. We can think of those kind of models. Okay, consultants can be one of the alternatives.
Right, I mean, essentially augmenting the bandwidth of the government organizations. Yes. Absolutely. Thanks for the inputs. Moving to Mr. Mukarji, as the government is planning to come out with the flagship digital infrastructure program to correct all the villages that Mr. Gupta just mentioned, it would perhaps be critical to ensure the use of quality products to build a network which is future ready. Additionally, the use of quality products will reduce the replacement capex 20 years or 30 years whenever down the line, and will offer a reasonable value when the same is returned back to the government after the concessionaire period. What needs to be done to ensure that BharatNet network, built with obviously taxpayer money and loans, as Mr. Gupta mentioned, is a high quality future-proof network when it gets rolled out? What is it that we can help on in providing us inputs to that?
Thank you, Jaijit. But before I answer your question, I think I'd like to just expand on what Professor Vigneswara was talking about in terms of a POP, a tower, and providing service. We've come, it's a different journey from when we were setting out to create a network and provide services to everybody. The principle was build it and they will come.
Yeah.
I don't think we're in that state any longer. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why the private sector is not being able to find any value in erecting a tower is because when they build it, nobody comes. And I'll just try and give you a little bit, because I've been on the private sector, a little bit of an understanding of how that works. Let's take a tower as being a factory. A factory which requires a minimum of 1,000 subscribers, assuming an X revenue per subscriber.
Yes.
Thumb rule numbers. Now what's happening really? In the remote areas, they don't have the wherewithal to make a call. So there is no value being added there. They're only receiving a call. There is no value being added as a result of receipt of call, because call termination charges are zero.
Right.
So calls come, there is traffic, but there is no revenue getting generated from that traffic. That's one part of it, which is the revenue part. And I think Rajesh has heard this all from the operators. So he's smiling here.
That is true. We actually visit on the ground also and see this such situation.
Yeah. The second part of it is that when you put a tower up there, there's an assumption that there is fiber which is available. But that fiber has cuts, has immaturities, has inconsistencies, and this goes to the point that Dr. Jaijit has just asked me, in terms of quality of the fiber which has been laid. It will not last for any length of time. It's a fiber, no question about that. But there are fibers, and technology is growing so fast that in 20 years, everything changes. So if you've got something which is 20 years old, you've got to replace it, regardless, because technology has moved so fast. So there are different reasons for why the principle of build it and they will come no longer works. And so the whole argument has to now stand on its head, and you have to bring them and then build it. So that is one part of the thought that
in fact, that's what he was talking about in terms of demand side of it.
Demand.
That's what Professor was talking
I thought
about.
I just fleshed that out.
Absolutely.
But coming to the point that you were asking me about, again, it's the same
Quality,
quality of the fiber.
Or whatever, fiber, wireless,
whatever.
ensuring it's 5G, not 3G,
Well,
and
yes.
so on. Yeah.
I mean, like for example, does it have to be an armored
Base.
base?
Yeah.
Does it have to be at X depth or Y depth? These are all factors which go into this.
There are standard engineering instructions actually
Yeah.
of laying the cable and across in the cross country areas or in the built up areas. So we do have proper standards on laying of.
No, I'm sure you are. I was just thinking of it from the standpoint of the fact that I think in phase one, there was a predominance of single mode fiber which was laid.
Yes.
Predominance. Now,
for long distance, only single mode is.
Yeah. So now I think
Multi-mode
the
is
point
not.
is, if they have the 652.D I think fiber, which is a more technologically capable and more current kind of thing. It might be from the standpoint of the time frame, it might have to stand the test of time. But again, why only fiber?
If I can come in again, I think the point is that many of the procurements from the government is now moving towards outcome-oriented procurement, which at many levels sounds great. I have myself been a huge proponent of it 10, 15 years back. But in the telecom, what we get to hear is the problem is that we say that X MBPs has to be given, that outcome will be achieved. But underlying is a jugaad that happens. And I think that's the concern that seems to be bubbling up, that is there any way to say that no, there has to be some minimal technology in addition to the outcome-based procurement. So I think that's what the debate is, and I think you had some points in that.
So I was just wanted to add, I was thinking, I realize that even Neeraj has been talking about fiberization and so on and so forth, and it's an important part because somehow when we think about the USO, we think only about fiber. And I'd like to just toss out a thought here, Rajesh ji. The objective is not fiber. The objective is to connect those last 640,000 village points. Now, there is a potential to do it through satellite. There's a potential to use FSOC. There's a potential to use high capacity microwave for sections. And there's a potential, rather than getting into creating a tower, to put up Wi-Fi hotspots, so that at least data is available. The basic what do they call the applications, etc., that we have for self-governance, etc., are available to the local population there. So I'm saying, can we think a little differently? Because all this time, we've been trying to replicate the broadband access model, assuming that the person at the other end has a device, but he or she may not have a device because they may not be able to afford 10 or 15,000 rupees for a new device. Even if it's a second-hand device, you'll still end up paying 5,000 rupees. Can they afford it? Maybe not. So it's a different. We have to really stand the whole logic on its head, and that's why I suggest different strategies for purposes of connectivity. not just fiber.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a lot of inputs from you, Mr. Mukarji. And that brings me to you, Mr. Neeraj Kumar. I think we kept hearing about the issue of having a healthy network, of ensuring the network stays for long and so on. And also the fact that when we are procuring, we are saying that the procurement should also take care of the existing network. But unless people know how good the existing network is, they will not be able to put a cost to the maintenance of those network. So a quick and efficient completion of the health audit of existing network appears to be one of the main preconditions to ensure timely start and completion of the projects. What is the government strategy to ensure that a healthy, high quality network is handed over to private players or whoever the end user is in an efficient and timely manner?
Thank you for the question. But first of all, as Broadband Mission, we don't execute any projects ourselves directly. We are an overarching body who basically sees what is government doing, what is in private sector is doing. So I am also responsible what Jio is doing, what Airtel is doing. So I am there to solve their problems also. I am there to solve their problems also. So first of all, this question, if it is related to about the audit of the, you can say, emissions which are concerned to the health people, maybe our different team is doing the terms does that as per the regulatory requirement, so that the operators don't emit more.
So actually, the question is about the quality of network.
So quality of network also, because now we are not executing, it will be maybe prudent, maybe if he can answer, because they are the executing body of the government to execute BharatNet project. But we as such Broadband Mission, we are not executing any project.
Sure.
We just facilitate execution of projects either by government or by private.
So from your perspective, how do you see the existing networks that have been rolled out? How efficiently or effectively they are being used by all the stakeholders? Are they being effectively used, or there needs to be an effort to strengthen the existing networks?
So again, what we are doing to facilitate that there is a synergy, there is a use of resources. So again, I will say that we have the PM Gati Shakti portal, wherein we are asking everybody to come there so that they can come to know what kind of optical fiber is available or resources are available, and even from NHAI or railways if they have any fiber or anything, so that telecom operators come to know and they can use it efficiently. And it will save their cost. And basically, during the planning also, because even when NHAI is trying to lay the optical fiber cable, they can say so on the map. Maybe it will come after 2 years, but a telecom operator will come to know today itself that this optical fiber cable is coming. So their planning division can take notice of this. Mm-hmm. They can plan their own network based on this efficiency. So everything will get fast forward at much lower cost.
Right. So I have an added question. Given the visibility that you have to all the networks, do you think it's possible to actually do asset recycling of the BharatNet as and when it comes out? And already there's a middle mile, an end mile. There'll be parts which have revenue, there are parts which do not have revenue. Can we kind of break it up and do an asset recycling? Do you think
all
it makes
the
sense?
Optical fiber cable or the project which they are executing in the aspirational district villages, the Kochi, Kavaratti fiber, the Andaman Nicobar fiber cable, all this is being mapped on again the PM Gati Shakti portal. If they come out with the new fiber, in fact their own plans or tender or RFP, they can also be planned, and we have suggested to USOF, because now when they start preparing the RFP, they know what we have done. Suppose there is a tower, so we have made a model. Okay, this tower, how much in which area it will radiate, so that is marked on the map. We also have a layer of the population center, that is also mapped. So their agency who will bid in the tender, it can come to know, or they can also say, okay, this is the area which is not covered. So where they have to put new towers. So this information will be transparently used by all the bidders, so everybody will have access to the same information.
Right.
It will not happen that one person is having less information, another person is having more information. So it will facilitate their planning of their projects also, and once it has been done, it will also help in the rollout of the project, because the measurement can be done again with the same portal.
Right. So the information asymmetry goes
Yes.
away. I think that's tremendous. That's terrific. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah.
In terms of, I do not know how far I'm wrong. So vendor has been contracted, they're laying optical fiber. So when they receive the work, do we really go back and check the quality of the fiber, right? So if the existing fiber quality is not very good, whatever we are thinking of in terms of building new service model, business models on top of it, is not going to work out very well. So it's, in a way, it's very, very important to, I remember, I think Mr. Ravi Shankar or somebody talking about fiber health index, looking at what is the health of this particular existing infrastructure, which is already there. Okay, if you do not have adequate information related to it, it is going to be, I think, relatively difficult to scale it up to the next stage. So that is, I would say that's very important. So when we are really talking about asset recycling, that particular health status, I mean the quality status is going to be helpful in thinking about assets recycling. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. Actually.
Right, indeed. In fact, asset recycling might even contribute to your kitty.
This is a good input actually, and regular audit of the or health, checking the health of the network is also important. And we are inbuilding taking these actions now.
And even the depth at which the cable is being basically put, that can also be mapped on this GIS portal, wherein we can know, okay, what is the depth of this portal. And if you have to lay additional, for example, if an operator has to lay additional 200 meters, 300 meters from the nearest OFC head, now we have the soil characteristics also mapped there on the portal. So you will come to know whether the soil is soft or hard, so they can come to know what will be the exact cost for doing the fiberization of unfiberized towers.
Right, and hopefully they will not cut other fibers or other cables.
So,
and
before you take is also there, because if every fiber is mapped, we'll put there, we are basically thinking of setting up a call center. So if anybody is planning to basically lay the optical fiber cable across a new route, it will tell, okay, these are the optical fiber cable existing and you need to contact this call center.
Right.
So dial before you dig facility will also train.
Oh, tremendous. I think that's terrific. I think a lot of technology is being leveraged to roll out the next technological requirement. That's great to hear. Mr. Gupta, this is probably a last question because we're running out of time, but I think there's been a wonderful conversation. One of the key concerns for industry in the process of implementing BharatNet 3 is a lower estimate of capex numbers for all the project packages, because that's what determines the bid number, the values. How will the government or how is the government planning to rationalize capex estimates assumptions, considering that raw material and service prices have increased over 30% in the last 12 to 18 months, and especially so in the last 6-7 months due to increase in oil prices and chip shortages? So how do you plan to look at that?
Yeah, what numbers or we are talking is with respect to our earlier RFP, which we brought in the month of July last year. It had the project cost calculated for about say 3.6 lakh around say villages. It was not for all states of the country. It was for about 16 states of the country for 3.61 lakh villages, and we calculated a project cost of around say 29,000 crores for that, and 60% of that we wanted to give on VGF basis to the PPP concessionaire, that is around say 19,000 crores. Now these numbers, this time what again we are restructuring this based on the industry interactions. So referring to the increase in the cost in the last few years or few months, whatever reference rates we have taken in calculation of the cost, we have linked those to the CPI IW, this thing, indicators. So whatever, so as to actually inbuild the increase in cost factor also while calculating the number of the cost. So this time we are trying to work very scientifically on the cost estimations, number one, and
if I can just interrupt you, actually, unfortunately, we do not have an index, inflation index for digital. So the CPI includes food, includes everything else.
So we are not taking the general CPI or WPI numbers. We are taking CPI industrial work, IW. CPI.
Okay.
So that is, I think, to the closest indicator on increase in the price of this industrial equipment.
Fair enough. I think that's
based on that, we are trying to work on these numbers. Whatever cost, the approved cost or the other tenders cost or discount cost we had, they are 5 years back. Then we have worked on for 5 years what can be the increase in the cost, and then taken those costs into the calculations. Sure. So we have reworked all this, and we are trying to come up to the actual. And other cost, Calculations also we have really done. We have worked on all these types of numbers, what all equipments would actually be required, so that whatever equipment we put, they are ready to be used by the micro entrepreneurs or anybody in the last mile. So those things also we are taking care, in addition to whatever we put thought in the last. So we're trying to work on all the suggestions of the industry.
I think that's great, and I think it's an extremely complex exercise that you are taking up,
Yes,
and I don't think any of us would envy to be in your shoes at this point in time.
That truly was, as you can say, but we are almost have finalized and we are trying to come up.
That's great. I think everything that you have said is absolute music to the ears for those who are involved in this project. I think this sounds very good. I have just one last question. I'll go round to everybody with the same question. That given we talked about asset recycling, given we talked about NHAI, and the National Digital Communications Policy talked about something called NFAI, National Fiber Authority of India. Starting with you, Mr. Gupta, do you think that it does make sense to adopt NFAI so that that's a path to monetization of the networks, which can be sold off eventually, like they're selling off the highways? Does that make sense?
I would not like to comment. It's a sort of policy question, and maybe what best being done, because there are many PSUs and all, so fibers and all are, say, commercial organizations to the best extent.
Sure.
And, regarding this BharatNet now, we already are thinking to maintain it in best health through this PPP concessionaire, and presently also till the PPP concessionaire is onboarded, we have already come up with one RFP for maintenance of this whole network on SLA based through BSNL. So that RFP is already brought out and the last month, and now it's going to be open this month. We are trying to finalize an agency so that this whole network is maintained in best of the health.
Sure. Any last points from you?
So government has said that no new authority or no new entity is to be created, whatever is there, because creating new entity doesn't make it efficient. So whatever, whosoever is the owner, making them or telling them, enabling them with technology makes them efficient.
Right. I think very well said. Thank you. Mr. Mukarji, any last point?
The National Fiber Authority was something which was mentioned in the NDCP, if I recall clearly, 2018. And but I think, and this is my personal view, I think the Gati Shakti program has kind of subsumed the need to have that, because everything is now under one umbrella. So you call it anything you want to. I think the objective has been achieved, and what I'm hearing Gati Shakti doing is phenomenal. The fact that right of way is being streamlined across the country, phenomenal.
Right.
The fact that we know exactly what is available where, tremendous. These are the kind of things which I think were being visualized for the NFAI to do.
Yes.
So call it anything you want. I think if that same end objective has been achieved through the creation of a Gati Shakti program,
Absolutely.
it's happened.
Absolutely. Professor?
Okay. So the objective of this particular BharatNet is looking at broadband for all. Phase 1, phase 2, we had problems, challenges in meeting it. Since things are not really working out, nothing wrong in trying out new models, at least on a pilot basis. So asset recycling or bringing in private sector to do certain things on a pilot basis, we definitely should try. If you are able to achieve this broadband at all, we roll it for pan India. Otherwise, we can always go back to our own.
Great. I think makes a lot of sense coming from the professor. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'll now request Preeti to actually give the closing remarks, and while she's walking down, I'll just say it one more time. A lot of inputs that we got. I think it's extremely enlightening for both the industry and the academics. So thank you so much for your inputs.
So we have heard the erudite thoughts of our panelists and the moderator. We stand immensely enlightened of the India's march towards digital inclusiveness. We are thankful to them for having spared their time and look forward to their presence to benefit us in time to come. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.